What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Garden Tractor Rescue. Been a minute, but I'm back. Hey, today I'm working on my John Deere 140. This is my 1974 John Deere 140. Winter's coming to a close here pretty quick, and getting ready for spring. Should be putting tiller on tomorrow. Repainted my hood last night, just touching stuff up. Got to keep up on these old tractors, but keep them looking nice. Did a motor swap, rebuild, and swapped in a new motor when we got our 2 feet of snow a couple weeks back here. But today I'm putting in an hour meter. I already drilled my hole. There really wasn't any good spots in the dashboard up here. I could have pulled out my ammeter, but I'd like to see how my electrical system's doing. And I really didn't want to drill up here. It just kind of takes away from the factory look. So instead, I drilled my hole down here. This is going to be a nice spot where you can still see while the tractor's running, or while the hood's down and everything. Still be able to read it. Just here to help me with keeping track of oil changes and maintenance in general. John Deere would have offered an add-on one back in the day that went around the column and sat kind of like this, was my understanding, but I didn't need anything like that or want it. So started off with pulling the battery, disconnecting all my battery cables, battery tray, got that all unbolted. Now, wiring on these kind of looks a little intimidating, but it's really not bad. John Deere was nice on these 140s and I think also some of the 110s, 112s. They added in a spot for your accessories, which is the orange wire here. This one has, there was 3 boots on here because they would have offered a cigarette lighter, which I do have one on one of my other consoles. It's just not in here. I don't smoke anymore, so I don't need it. But I added in, I added these aftermarket lights on here, and I didn't like the way that they looked with aftermarket switch. So I added in a factory switch, and no battery in there right now, but when I turn that switch on, then my lights come on for the back, and then also these nice bright lights out front turn on. And if I forget to turn it off, as long as I take the key out, not a big deal. It won't drain my battery because they turn off as soon as you pull the key. So I'm going to continue on using their extra orange wires here. I'm going to tap into this right here. Either one doesn't matter. And I did add the extra circuit breaker when I put the light switch, but I'm not going to use that for the hour meter. I'm going to tap into one of these two, doesn't matter which one, for my hot. And that'll ensure that the only time the hour meter is running is when the key is on. If I leave it without it running, if the key's turned, the hour meter will run, unfortunately. But I don't leave the key in the tractor, so it's not an issue. So then that's going to be hot, and then my ground wire, get down in here, I'm going to ground out right down here. You see this bolt in the console right here. I'm going to use this as my ground point for the hour meter. bolt's kind of in a tricky spot, but it's close enough to the gauge where I won't have to run wires all over the place. So that's why I'm picking this spot. Just gonna clean it up a little bit. Make sure there's not a bunch of grease and stuff on it. Alright, so now I'm going to start getting my wiring together here. So for the sake of consistency, I'm going to continue on with the color that John Deere uses for, at least on the older garden tractors, for the headlights. They were always yellow and black. I believe on the 110, 112, and the 140, I think the add-on kit that John Deere offered was yellow and black and green and black, I believe, for the front and rear headlights. But I'm going to just stick with yellow and black for this. Black is going to be ground, and I'm just going to run from down here at the bolt right up to the back of the hour meter, and then I'm going to run, I got a crimp-on fitting, this style crimp-on fitting. It'll go right inside of the boot here for my hot. Alright, gonna head on over to the workbench now, start wiring this. I got everything measured out. It's not going to be a whole lot of wire, so it's easy to measure. I'm going to start off with the ground, probably about an 8-inch long piece. And I didn't happen to have any of the shrink fittings that were going to fit this particular one. I'm all out of my shrink wrap fittings for this size. So because I'm using a 5/16 bolt as my ground, and that's the type of fitting that I had on hand that's close enough to fit, I'm just going to snip this one a little bit, spread it out just a little bit, and now it should fit 5/16 for my ground. A little more yet. There we go. So it fits 5/16 ground. And then on the other side, the hour meter that I bought has So the hour meter that I bought, they sent along, boy, that lighting's terrible. Hour meter that I bought for this, they sent along a wiring harness for it. You gotta wire your own harness, but that's maybe a little better. So I do have the right size shrink wrap for this. Alright, there's that. And real quick, keep this up, shrink it. Help protect it just a little bit from the elements. So that's the ground wire. And the hot wire is going to be very similar. Oh, actually, I do want to wrap this just to keep things together. It should never come apart if it's crimped proper, but I still, out of habit, I still do wrap with electrical tape. Okay, so there we are. One part of the harness. On the hot wire side, actually I want that a little longer. Hot wire is more of the same story. Crimping on fittings. This one's probably about 14 to 16 inches long to reach where I want it to go. Okay, there we have it. Got both of my pieces of wiring harness done. And this is, so these brass ends slide inside of here and they'll lock in place when you push them in. So you want to make sure everything's right on them before you push them home, because they don't come back out very easily. Back to the tractor. Alright, on to the install for this. So we're gonna, like I said, I'm tapping into this orange boot here. Just plug it in. I assembled the plastic connector portion, turn it into a harness. My ground wire is gonna go down here. I'm gonna get that bolted in. And I connected up some jumper cables to the battery just so I could verify that everything's correct and that the gauge does work before I put everything back together. Doesn't seem to matter if you connect which side of this gets connected to which side of the harness. That doesn't matter. It works either direction from what I can tell. And of course, new shiny hardware. Kind of, maybe not a requirement, but boy, it helps ground things a lot better. disconnect these battery cables before we get a nice big pop. It's always exciting, but also scares the shit out of you. Okay, so there's that, and then I gotta get the gauge put in and connected. 8mm, little itty bitty nuts for this. See how many more times we can drop them. Alright, I like it. So here you can see where our meter's been installed. Little itty bitty nuts to hold it on like they all are. And then here we are from the front. So I'm going to connect up this wiring harness and start putting everything back together. I am going to zip tie, just keep this wiring out of the way and a little bit cleaner. I don't know where I'm going to zip tie this to. Maybe to the choke cable. Either zip tie or electrical tape it maybe. Because I don't want it getting tangled up in the drive shaft. Oh, there we have it. We got a working hour meter on the 140. This one's nice because it's got this little gear that spins. You can hear the click while it's running, but having that little gear turning, you know for sure it's running too. Sometimes when the tractor's running itself, it's kind of hard to tell if your hour meter's actually working or not. Nice clean factory looking install though. Something to consider if you're putting this on a 140. If you don't know how to weld and you think you might resell it someday, it might not be the best idea to cut a hole if you're worried about resale value. Sometimes people don't like hour meters. I'm a big fan of them. I like them for maintenance. And to me, if I see an hour meter on something that didn't have it, at least it tells me the owner cared somewhat about the maintenance. But some people are against it. A purist would definitely be having a fit about a hole in there. But if you can weld, you just keep the plug from it or grind down a new piece. Not a big deal. You throw it in there, tack it up, grind it out. A little bit of Bondo and nobody'd ever be the wiser. I'm happy with it though. And by keeping with the factory colors that are already in the harness, it doesn't look overly out of place, I don't think, anyway. Well, that's what I got for you today. If you like the idea of adding an hour meter to your 140 and you want to see more content like this, please hit the like and subscribe button. And I'll see you for the next one.